the chase. Dr. Fauci, you said CDC was going to update its guidance and include antigen testing, or suggested that it would. Dr. Walensky and CDC came out with the guidance. It didn't include it. Was that part of the communications plan to start with, and they diverted, or was that something you just chose to inject?
Thank you for that question, Senator Burr. In discussions about the real gray zone, which Dr. Walensky described, about after the 5 days where you have a considerable diminution in the likelihood of being transmitting, we had been in discussions about what the role of antigen testing would be. And as a matter of fact, when Dr. Walensky came out with the final guidelines, they include that if you have a test available, you may take a test. So at the end of the day, we were quite in concordance with our views.
Well, I think the chair and I share this. We found it very confusing, and I think the American people found it confusing, and I don't say it lightly when I say not too many people in America are listening to what comes out of Washington, whether it's Congress or out of the administration as it relates to COVID. So the president makes an announcement, Ms. McConnell, of 500 million at-home tests. Is this the first time that you've thought about purchasing an at-home test, or have you tried to before and it was rejected?
Thank you, Ranking Member Burr. This is the first time the administration has committed to purchasing tests to send to the American households.
So is that ASPR or is that DOD? Because of all the notifications of contracts signed, I've seen them from DOD. I haven't seen them from HHS.
Thank you for that question, Ranking Member Burr. We have a relationship with DOD for assisted acquisitions. So ASPR will request that DOD put out a solicitation or manage a contract on our behalf. They're able to do it extraordinarily quickly. And we've had an MOU in place with DOD for this work that will run through June 2023. We've used this relationship to purchase vaccines and therapeutics, and we're now using it for testing.
So the best I can find, you mentioned 50 million doses having been contracted. I can identify 27 million out of two companies, Media and Atlantic Trading. Neither one of them are manufacturers of tests, and I believe the third one, Revival, is not a manufacturer of tests. Media actually came to fame was importation of vodka and tying cell phones to vodka. And like a lot of other companies, they got in the PPE business in 2020 with some nominal FEMA contracts. Why should we have any confidence in these contracts if, in fact, we're dealing with companies that don't manufacture anything? And can you assure me that the tests that are coming in are not coming from China?
Thank you, Ranking Member Burr. Absolutely. These tests, what we initially did to be able to access tests for the initial shipments that will go towards the end of January, we worked with warehouses to see where additional tests were stored and assessed that additional capacity and are bringing that capacity to bear for these initial tests that are going out, which is why you're seeing contracts with warehouses and not with test manufacturers.
So is what you're telling me they've got 50 million tests in warehouses in the United States and all we did was access that inventory?
That is my understanding.
Well, will you confirm your understanding? This is a very, very important piece when you've got companies that don't manufacture tests, and all of a sudden we're giving them a $190 million contract for about 14 million home tests, and their expertise is importation of vodka. I encourage you to look through the list of people that we're signing up with. Are you aware that some of the larger test manufacturers in 2021 shut down lines because of the lack of purchases for at-home tests?
One of the things we did in the fall with the $3 billion investment that we made was to turn lines on and to commit to those lines for 13 months so they wouldn't be turned off again.
Dr. Woodcock, let me just, last question, Chair. Of the 15 tests that you've currently approved for over-the-counter, how many detect Omicron?
We're still working on that, but we believe all of them detect Omicron. We simply feel they are somewhat less sensitive than they were to some of the previous variants.
Of the 50 million tests that the ASPR has contracted for, how many of those tests detect Omicron?
I don't know which tests there are. We can get back to you on that.
So you haven't consulted with what we're purchasing on the 500 million. They haven't consulted with FDA to figure out whether the tests they're buying actually detect Omicron.
I believe they have. I simply don't have that list.
Okay, I thank the chair.
Senator Kane?
Thank you, Chair Murray, and to the witnesses. Dr. Fauci, can you provide us a general breakdown of what percentage of hospitalized individuals are vaccinated versus unvaccinated?